If there are non-Jews that are besieging the cities, it's the Sabbath, it's Shabbos. Well, do you desecrate the Shabbos and go fight them or not? Depends why they're coming. If they're coming for money, no, we don't desecrate the Sabbath for money. Give them what they want, let them take what they want, let them pillage, let them rob, let them steal. We don't desecrate the Sabbath for money. If they're coming for lives, or even we suspect they're coming for lives, we don't know for sure, but we're not going to wait to find out, go out and fight them. You're supposed to desecrate the Sabbath in that situation. And not only that, but preemptively strike, like we preemptively struck the 6-Day War and the 12-Day War. We understand the value of preemptively striking, like we did not preemptively strike by the Yom Kippur War. Preemptively strike on Shabbos. You can say, well, it's Shabbos. At least let me wait. Who knows? Maybe by the time they'll get here, Shabbos will be over. No! Much better military strategy to preemptively strike on the Shabbos. But in the third situation, they're not coming for lives. They're only coming for money, and they're coming for small change. The Shulchan Aruch says they're coming for straw, like cheap stuff. But if you live on the border and they're coming for straw on the Sabbath, go desecrate the Sabbath and fight them. And don't give them any control, because maybe they're going to decide to conquer the city. And once they conquer the city, because it's a border city, they'll conquer the entire land. So again, as I said, I wanted to talk about Bibi Netanyahu right now, what's going on with him, Trump, Washington. We know this started Monday, right? Since Monday, he's been there. Since Monday, there's talks. Obviously, what we are hearing is the very, very filtered for public consumption, everybody smiling media version of the story. Probably not what's really going on. And what I wanted to do was review 5 points clarified by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in terms of exactly this type of situation. Now, obviously, none of us are the prime minister. We're probably not the confidants of the prime minister. We're not privy to his inner ear. But as we've discussed several times since October 7th, our firm resolve, our vocalizing these points gives them strength. And I truly believe, which is why I'm doing this, helps Netanyahu, helps his resolve, helps his strength in this very, very critical juncture for the Jewish people. So basically, first point I want to focus on is that when we hear something like this is going on, Trump is calling Netanyahu, right? Whatever has to go on. No, it's not enough, a Zoom meet between the two of them or a Google meet. No, Netanyahu and his wife had to travel to Washington to have these meetings. We understand that means there's going to be a lot of pressure America is putting on them. And when we feel that pressure or that impending pressure, sometimes we panic. Sometimes we personalize it and we feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to be unbearable. And the president, Trump for sure, is going to be pushing so hard. And Israel officially is so indebted to America now, even though I look at it completely the opposite. I think America is very indebted to Israel right now. But so the big question that is like, well, is he going to handle it? It's not only Netanyahu. This has happened throughout our history, throughout the history of Israel and America. Will the prime minister stand up to the pressure? Will he withstand the pressure, or will he cave? So the first point that the Rebbe says in these situations is be aware of it, know what to expect. And of course, this is true in life in general. This is the job of the president of America. The job of the president of America is to protect America. He's not elected to protect Israel. He's elected to protect America. So if all works according to the natural plan, and of course we sincerely hope that everything will not work according to the natural plan, there's going to be a massive pressure on Netanyahu. The president of America has a situation that he wants to resolve as expediently, as quickly as possible. It doesn't make Trump a betrayer of Israel. It doesn't make Trump an anti-Semite. For his interests, he needs the war in Gaza to end as quickly as possible. He needs regional calm. He needs to stabilize oil prices. He needs to deal with all the Americans that are so upset of the shooting of innocent Gazans, aka Hamas. So the first thing is just to put it all in perspective. Like when we know what's happening and we all understand what's happening, and Netanyahu definitely knows what's happening, and he definitely traveled there knowing exactly what he was going to, it helps us not panic when it happens. And of course, it helps him to properly prepare when, not if, when the pressure will come from America, when the arm twisting is going to come. He obviously needs clarity. This is the key point. He needs to know what is going to keep Israel safe and secure. in this situation, he has to know that very strongly while managing Israel's relationship with America. And to do this properly, he has to show up as a proud Jew. He's not just representing Israel. It's not a secular country. He's representing all of us. I'm American. He's representing all Jews. He's representing Torah. He's representing the future of the Jewish people. And hopefully, of course, with some hopeful signs we have of this as well. First of all, the fact that we just came from the Iran war, where Hashem's name was on Netanyahu's lips from beginning to end, like I've never seen before. That gives a lot of hope that he's gets it, still gets it. I'm sure you saw the picture that they took missile shards from the Iranian missiles and they made from it a mezuzah in the shape of a bomber plane. But they made a mezuzah. It's not just a Jewish artifact. It's something that has spiritual symbolism to give this as their gift to Trump. A mezuzah from Iranian missile shards in the shape of the bomber, but a mezuzah. So that gave me hope. I heard tonight, I don't know if this has been verified at all, that Netanyahu gave Trump $1 of the Rebbe. I don't know if it's true. It's been all over some sites, but again, I don't know if it's true or not. But if it is true, that gives me also a lot of hope that, again, he's not trying to pretend he's not. He's coming as a Jew. He's coming as a representative of God. And, this is obviously, we're not the Prime Minister of Israel, but I'm sure this has possibly happened to us as well, that we've been in situations where we needed not to be ourselves, but to represent the Jewish people. This happened to you that you can remember when you know you're being looked at as a Jew and your behavior is reflecting a Jew. Any thoughts on that?
Not with non-Jews, with my secular family, or not secular, but like not so religious family.
So you're saying representing a religious Jew or representing Hashem?
Yeah, God, Hashem, a different point of view. I have to be a Kish Hashem. I have to, just be who I am, but present it positively and
be who you are in your best self.
Right. And try not to do anything that would be a Chil Hashem, or when they're asking me something like, "What's how do you keep Shabbat?" I'm not going to start with, "Well, you can't use spoons in your saucy chicken." You know what I'm saying? Like, don't say stupid things like that. Like, maybe try not turning on the light for the first hour Shabbat starts. Things like that. So, yeah.
Right. So when you're doing that, I mean, I know, because I know also when I'm in those situations representing Hashem, representing Jews to non-Jews, representing
Hashem,
Orthodox, representing Hashem among Jews also, from Jews also, representing Hashem. I always feel this sense of like responsibility to be my best self, to
Correct.
be my, like you're saying, we're billboards. We want to be the most beautiful billboard possible, the most enticing billboard possible. We want to really represent, like, Hashem shouldn't look not so good because of us, He's amazing. We hope we can properly reflect and transmit that energy. We can be transparent enough that his light can shine through us. That's what I think a lot of times. I should just be like a filter that his light should shine. I shouldn't be the barrier. His light should shine. Anyone else? Anyone else has had that experience?
Yeah, I have that in university. It's such a liberal, it's the world that I'm in, where I'm working from job and from setting, and then to go to that, it's just night and day, and it's almost sometimes jarring. And it really, like, I feel like when I walk in those doors, I'm like all of a sudden much more aware of my presence. Okay, I'm here. Like, it's really nice that I'm like learning, getting a degree, but I'm really here to like be an example for these people who genuinely don't have any other examples.
We are, every one of us is in that role in some capacity, as you're saying. So you're finding it so clearly in university. And I think my son Beryl is in the Chicago public schools. And, every one of us in whatever form we are. I mean, that's how the world looks at us. As you're saying, if someone's not religious, at the religious, not Jewish, at the Jewish, especially overtly Jewish, they see Jew first. They see religious Jew first. They see, if they're calling it this way or not, representative of God first. This is who we are. This is who we're supposed to be to the world. Light, you shall be a light to the nations. We're supposed to be that light. So it's good that we have this awareness, because that's the truth. That is definitely the truth. And definitely in this very critical situation here, hopefully, for sure, Netanyahu feels it and we empower him is living up to it. So how is he supposed to remain anchored? How is he supposed to be so strong when we can only imagine the pressure Trump could put him under? And if you look back historically, the not such happy news is this has happened countless times between Israel and America. And the prime ministers who caved, who crumbled, were not necessarily, oh yeah, they were what we call the doves. They were these liberals that had no clue about military or security. No, that's not the facts. That is not the facts. When we look at the critical prime ministers whose damage we're still living with, all three of them were what we call the hawks, meaning very conservative, very right-wing, very embedded in the military. They all knew very, very well the security issues. It's not like, us like couch potatoes sitting here. We understand the security issues. They knew them. They lived them. And look what happened. Menachem Begin, who gave away the Sinai for a piece of paper with Egypt, and if we didn't realize before, though we should have, we definitely have seen and has come out more and more since October 7th, the value of that. Gave away the oil wells, gave away all that land. Land is security, land is a buffer. I mean, we discussed this at length after October 7th, the travesty of just giving away the whole Sinai and how much it crippled and harmed till today Israel. That was Menachem Begin. Menachem Begin, if you know the history, he was like a fighter before the establishment of the state of Israel. He was an extremist. He was an extreme right-wing, extreme hawk, extremely conservative, extremely entrenched in understanding the security needs of the military. But it looks different when you're the prime minister and there's a lot of pressure on you. The next one that created so much damage was Shamir. Again, Shamir was a military man, a general. He understands all this, right-wing, a hawk, conservative, all the traits we're looking for. And he put us on the path to Oslo. And I remember when he started, he met with the Rebbe and he said, no, I don't mean any of it. I'm just I'm just playing the game. It's not real. Obviously, I'm not going to do any of this. Well, that's not how it works. What happened in Oslo? Israel, ludicrous, recognized the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, aka the terror organization that has been targeting Jews all over the world, in Israel and anywhere they can get them. Charter is to, like all these terrorist organizations, drive us into the sea, all 10 million of us. We recognize them. They're mentioned. They're reputable people. We change their name. Now it becomes the PA. We give them governance in our land, in the West Bank, in Gaza. The IDF had to withdrew from parts of Gaza, withdrew from Jericho, withdrew from the West Bank. And we've had terror in those areas ever since. Till today with the, you have the IDF in Gaza, you have the IDF in Syria, you have the IDF by Lebanon, and you have the IDF in the West Bank. The West Bank pre-Oslo was part of Israel. It was safe areas. It was under control. And now it's just terror because we gave them power. That was Shamir. And the third hawk was Sharon. Again, Arik Sharon. Arik Sharon is a war hero, as was Menachem Begin, as was Shamir. All of them war heroes, all of them military, all of them hawks, all of them conservative, all of them right-wing. What did he do? He literally gave Gaza. That whole land of Gaza was ours. He gave it as a gift, which means he drove away the Jewish settlers there. He exiled them, stripped away from them their homes, stripped away from them their settlements, stripped away from this land that they had built into a beautiful land from their own hands. And many of them, unfortunately, are still suffering until this day from instability and no place to be. They've never found themselves since. And what's going on? All of these men were completely committed to Israel's security. All of these men understood the horrors of what would happen, and yet all these men did exactly that. It's very, very, very great pressure. It's very easy for me sitting in Chicago. Nobody's pressuring me. Nobody cares what I think. Nobody's asking me for anything. It's very easy for me to see it very clearly. In that hot seat, the only way to survive is to be completely anchored in Torah, in your responsibility to the Jewish people, knowing who you represent, knowing what you represent, and then you're immovable because you have God's strength. It's not you. You're just a vehicle for God's strength. And then everybody else has to jump around you because you're not moving. But without that, without the grounding and the strength of Torah, I mean, we see, we don't have to believe these words of the Rebbe. Like, we see it historically, unfortunately. The strongest leaders with the clearest vision, the clearest military understanding, they just can fall apart when the stakes and the pressure is very high. And again, though I'm totally on our level, which is very different than what Netanyahu is going through right now. But I think we also sometimes have these situations in our life where we have a lot of pressure to do what we know is the, I'll call it, wrong thing. And sometimes when we pull on Torah's strength, when we pull on the truth of Torah, when we pull on God's strength, we can handle the pressure even though it's so, so intense. And sometimes we don't pull on it and we wind up doing things that we know we shouldn't do and know are wrong, and we just like, whatever, somehow happened. Have you been in this situation where you felt a lot of like strength and pressure on you to do what you know you should not do, and either did or didn't, did pull on Torah, did manage, or didn't and didn't? Or you've been in a situation where there's been a lot of pressure on you to do what you know is wrong, and you've overcome that by just like really holding on to your basic relationship with Hashem and like knowing what Hashem wants from you, just really, really, really squeezing on that to stay strong.
So I remember there are two things that are coming to mind very quickly. One is when I was going through school, I literally had to bring in a Jewish calendar, a clergy letter, in order to show that no, I was not able to come on these days and could not, and what I did was they made it a point to turn in my work, not after whatever the Yom Tov was, but before, which meant because I didn't want Chas v'Shalom the appearance of what would literally be like a Maras Ayin that, oh, I was using the extra time to do the work, when of course I couldn't be typing or writing or anything, but no one else knew that unless you were also from Jew. And so I remember literally bringing in my work early. And because I wasn't going to schlep out to where the class was a different time, I brought it even earlier. And there was one time where I remember the professor canceled that class and even called me to say, I guess he'll give it to me when you get back. And I had the opportunity, like I could have then worked on it more, refined it more. And I thought, no, this is not the way to do it. And instead, I dropped it off at the department so that it was there, it was waiting, so that it would only have, like, it should only smell good, so to speak, and pass that sniff test to the nth degree. So that's one thing that I'm thinking of. And then the other that also comes to mind in the same way, where like I had this choice. So I left too late. I'm going to take the responsibility of saying I left too late to go where I was traveling for Shabbos. There were many things that came up that like it was stuff that just added hours on to what should not have been. And I had actually my friend's daughter with me, who I thought I was driving from Brooklyn to Passaic. And instead, we wound up in Manhattan for Shabbos at Midtown Chabad. And I cannot tell you all of the different like opportunities where Baruch Hashem, they were just doing a chesed. They were putting us up in a hotel. They were giving us, the seudas. But to me, it's like there was still the opportunity. So here, Jew to Jew, I wanted to know that I was still paying for our hotel stay. I was still paying for however much the Suda would have cost. I was still, because it's like, so one example was with a non-Jew, but here this is Jew to Jew. And it's not like they were looking at me as anything with only Avas Yisrael. But still, it's a matter of like, but what do we need to do? To be at our highest self and not just take, but say, okay, what am I supposed to give and do?
I hear you, especially your first example. I could see that the idea of like really feeling you have to just pull and be stronger than strong because you represent something and therefore you were going to be that strong. I hear that. Yeah, definitely. Anyone else has think of examples they've gone through these ideas? I think we all have them. We all have these experiences. We all have things that are hard, and we all have things that we know are wrong, more wrong, or less wrong, or I think as Elise is pointing out, it's a little nuanced sometimes, right or wrong. And I definitely say it for myself. I've had many times where I'm in situations that are really a lot and just gives me clarity, just holding on very tight to Hashem and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, hold on to Hashem. You know, like I think of a Hasidic story that I won't share the whole story, but of a great person who, from which came an aphorism, when you're tied above, you don't fall below. Skipping the story to come to the punchline. When you're tied above, you don't fall below. And I can think of certain times in my life where I just would like repeat that to myself again and again and again and again and again and again. You're tied above, you don't fall below. You're tied above, you don't fall below. You're tied above, you don't fall below. And just really holding on tightly to that tie to above, you know, to the rope binding us to above, and knowing if I'm tied above, I'm not going to fall below. So I do think some of us have more dramatic lives, some of us have more opportunities, but I think probably we all go through experiences where it's a little bigger than our pay grade, but we stick to it with Hashem, and then, like, you know, we make it happen. So what is Netanyahu's strength supposed to look like? Like, what does Torah say he should be doing now? I mean, that's what's on the table, Gaza and the hostages and ending the war and the day after. And we know America's vision. What's Torah's vision? Torah's vision, of course, is not the one that the world wants us to have. Surprise, surprise. Torah's vision is not the one that the media is going to be so happy with us. Torah's vision is the truth, and the only answer for us to have real, enduring peace and security and safety in Israel, for us and for the Arabs. According to Torah, as Lubavitcher Rebbe said many, many, many times, and I would discuss this after October 7th at length, the only way to have security and enduring peace is to control the territory. It's our territory, and we need to control it. And if we give up control, even partially, we create a vulnerability that will be exploited. Whenever Israel has given up control, even partially, this has not resulted in peace. It's resulted in death. And what do people say? Oh, you didn't give enough. You know, I mean, like looking at Gaza, right? We gave them the whole Gaza. We gave them beautiful land, beautiful beaches. When we gave them Gaza, we were, it's going to be, the expression was, the Singapore of the Middle East. It's going to be so beautiful. It's going to be a little like pilot project for the Arabs with their own autonomy and self-government. And we have instead Hamas in the slums, in the terror, in the exploitation of their own people, of what's going on in Gaza. We don't have beauty. We have Hamas. For terrorists, the only end result they see is our death. Actually, one of the leaders of Hezbollah said this like yesterday or something. He said, there's no way, okay, officially Hezbollah gave in, and officially, this guy officially is saying, we didn't do that. Yeah, we said it. Yeah, we didn't mean it. There's no other, the only option we have is killing the Jews or us dying in the process. That's it. Those are the two roads. There's no road there in his vision called peace and living together. And if you give us land and autonomy, then we'll create our own government side by side of yours. That's just like fantasies made up in PR, you know, AI segments. Western liberals thinking they understand what's going on in the Arab mentality, as if what's happening is happening in like Arkansas instead of in the Middle East. This has been a fundamental principle throughout the ages. It happened in the times of King David. It happened in the times of the Talmud, not in Israel. This is not having to do necessarily with the holiness of Israel. It has to do with the sanctity of Jewish lives. They were under Persian rule, and how the sages said they had to behave to protect Jewish lives. And this was codified in Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, in the laws of Shabbos. chapter 329, section 329, Siman 6. I'm going to review this law. I know you know it. It's very important because this is foundational. As is written there in Shulchan Aruch, the Laws of Shabbos, chapter 329, section 6. If there are non-Jews that are besieging the cities, it's the Sabbath, it's Shabbos. Well, do you desecrate the Shabbos and go fight them or not? Depends why they're coming. If they're coming for money, no, we don't desecrate the Sabbath for money. Give them what they want, let them take what they want, let them pillage, let them rob, let them steal. We don't desecrate the Sabbath for money. If they're coming for lives, or even we suspect they're coming for lives, we don't know for sure, but we're not going to wait to find out, go out and fight them. You're supposed to desecrate the Sabbath in that situation. And not only that, but preemptively strike, like we preemptively struck the 6-Day War and the 12-Day War. We understand the value of preemptively striking, like we did not preemptively strike by the Yom Kippur War. Preemptively strike on Shabbos. You could say, well, it's Shabbos. At least let me wait. Who knows? Maybe by the time they'll get here, Shabbos will be over. No! Much better military strategy to preemptively strike on the Shabbos. But there's a third situation. They're not coming for lives. They're only coming for money, and they're coming for small change. The Shulchan Aruch says they're coming for straw, like cheap stuff. But if you live on the border and they're coming for straw on the Sabbath, go desecrate the Sabbath and fight them. And don't give them any control, because maybe they're going to decide to conquer the city. And once they conquer the city, because it's a border city, they'll conquer the entire land. And again, this is not sanctity of Israel. This was talking in the Talmud, the source of this law, about a city in Babylonia called Naharda. Not an Israel situation. So this is a very, very, very strong point. And I'll just review it again, because this is literally the Torah source. If they're coming for money, let them. If they're coming for lives or perhaps lives, preemptively strike, desecrate the Sabbath to protect Jewish lives. And if they're coming for small change in your border city, go out and fight. Because if they get the border city, they're going to take over the whole land. And this was always the point the Lubavitcher Rebbe would come back to. Whenever the enemy comes at us, we have to destroy them. Because the entire Israel is so tiny, is so narrow. Once they get a foothold, like we gifted them with Gaza. Well, what happened when we gifted them with Gaza? Instead of them building up the Singapore of the Middle East, what did they do? Well, now they have a great opportunity to shoot rockets and missiles at us and try and destroy and conquer the entire Israel and drive 10 million people into the sea, like they explicitly say and they chant all over the world. They're not hiding it. They're not being subtle. From the river to the sea, what does that mean precisely? What's supposed to happen with the 10 million people that are now from that river to the sea? Well, we're going to drive them into the sea. That's the goal. That's the strategy. That's what we're looking for. So we gave you Gaza, and you're not happy? We should have given you a few more kilometers? We should have given you double the size? Would that have made you happy? What makes them happy is when they achieve their goal. When they achieve their goal, there's nothing left. It's Palestine. It's the entire land, so to speak, is Gaza. That's what they want. And that's why anytime we cave into pressure and give even the smallest infringement on terrain, there's massive security vulnerabilities. And again, this isn't only in Israel, this is anywhere. If you give away control of the territory, you might have a short-term gain. Maybe for 3 days, the world's going to like you, or 2.5, or less than that. But the enemy is going to return with a vengeance. It's the hard reality. It's not the fun reality, because that means soldiers have to keep fighting and reservists, their lives are upside down, and the hostages. We've got a lot of reasons why people want this over already. It's dragged on for a long time at a tremendous loss of normalcy for so many people. But we have to control the terrain. And if the adversary controls the terrain, they're just gonna do more, come back, increase the damage, make all of Israel vulnerable to their attacks. So we get into this question. Now, again, these popular ideas on the table as if people are thinking of them for the first time. If you look in the history of Israel, this has come many times. Self-governance, autonomy, right? We don't want the IDF ruling millions of Arabs. Why would we want to do that? Okay, fine. We're going to drive Hamas out. That's some fantasy vision. And then we're going to let the Arabs rule themselves. That's how we got into the situation in the first place. People think, oh, this is such a smart idea, such a novel concept. We're going to lessen our presence so we don't have to be there and we don't need our soldiers endangered and the whole world mad at us because of it. And then we're mitigating the threat of terrorism because if they govern themselves, suddenly they will all be transformed and none of them will be terrorists anymore. The Rebbe says that the Torah warns. That's not how these people operate. No bridges to peace, no kind-hearted compromises. It doesn't work. This is a springboard to terror. Whatever you want to call it self-determination. You know, people use lots of nice labels to make things sound so nice and like whitewashed. You know, and they're going to put the moderates in control. Are there moderates? There are moderates. They never put them in control. The truth is, you don't have to believe in Torah. You don't have to believe in the Rebbe. You don't have to believe that Torah says you have to do this. You don't have to believe the Rebbe says you have to do this. You look in the history of what happened every time we crumbled and messed up and did what makes no sense and gave these people self-governance, autonomy, self-determination. Well, what happened in Shechem, in Hebron, in Ramla? As the Rebbe says, look at who they elected to be in charge. Hamas. Hamas, irony is, they were elected. We give away Gaza. Now the Arabs, of course, there's going to be democracy, right? No dictatorships here. You're free people. Elect your government. Autonomy. You're going to make your own little state here, right? So to speak, self-rule. And they elect Hamas. There were other parties running that were far more moderate. They didn't want the moderate parties. Obviously, once Hamas took over, nobody was left alive from moderate possibilities of competition. But initially there was. That's not who they elected. And people say, well, we're not giving them military autonomy. We're giving them civil autonomy. Once you relinquish control, they want more and they want more. And what you agreed, they change and they change in 5 minutes. Originally, in a certain situation here, we said, okay, for 5 years, it's going to be like this until you prove this, this, and this. 5 minutes later, suddenly they're like, okay, we're past that stage. What do you mean you're past that stage? That stage is supposed to last for 5 years. No, like, we're done. We're past. You were supposed to be electing those moderate Arabs. No, we sent them away. Those aren't the people we want to run things. No. Oh, and we don't want any IDF here. Why is that necessary? We have our own police. So suddenly the PA, the PLO, terrorist organization, the organization that till today, the PA pays, gives a monthly stipend to any terrorist imprisoned in Israel. They're very generous. You don't have to be from their organization. You could be from Hezbollah, you could be from Hamas, you could be from the Islamic Jihad. It doesn't make a difference. Any terrorist sitting in Israeli prison gets a monthly stipend from the PA. That's the very moderate of all of these terrorist groups that already we're giving power to and we're giving a police force to. And that's what their principles are. That's what their values are. It's like literally we're giving the weapons to our enemies to come and shoot us. The Rebbe says we just took away the carpet from under our own feet. It takes about 5 minutes for them to realize the power they have once we give it to them. And we lost our ability to control the area. And if we initially can stay strong, which is very hard, which is very, very, very hard, and don't give them any power, which is so not nice and not what the world wants us to say. But literally, the more we give them, the more we literally endanger the lives of the Jewish people. And then they come with another demand, and then they come with another demand, until their ultimate demand that all 10 million of us go in the sea. And it's just, again, it's not really something you have to talk a lot about because we've just seen this again and again in the history of the Jewish people, in the history of Israel. Every time they've done it, they keep making the same mistake and they keep having the same results. The results haven't changed in any of their various versions of this. Now, of course, another popular new idea, which is not new at all and has been tried and failed many times, just like giving them autonomy has failed many times. So this new idea is like, we have this brilliant idea. We're going to put in foreign troops, a coalition of professional armies, not hostile to Israel. Though nowadays some of the armies are talking about are hostile to Israel, but let's pretend. Not hostile to Israel, and they're willing to come in and maintain control and keep the peace. This is such a beautiful idea. You know, like, honestly, when Arabs see you Israelis, it gets them really mad. And you're endangering your lives. So we have this beautiful idea. You stay home, stay in Tel Aviv, stay in Jerusalem, stay in the western part of Jerusalem. The Arabs shouldn't see you. It shouldn't trigger them. And we'll do the dirty work for you. It's such a beautiful idea. Whenever this has come on the table, the Rebbe has always said the same thing. This will not work. It's the same idea. You're giving away control of the land. What do you mean we're giving away control? There's troops there. Yeah, but they're not your troops. If they're not your troops, you're giving away control of the land. And bottom line, if it's considered too dangerous for our IDF soldiers to protect the land for the Jews, we're expecting some foreign nation to do this for us. Every country, again, doesn't mean they're bad people. Every country has their own best interest in mind. Surprise, surprise. Everyone's doing what's best for themselves. And if we have international troops safeguarding Israel, they're not doing it for us. They're doing it because they think it's best for them. There were many such attempts in the past. Every one resulted in fail. We spoke at length after October 7th about the wars in Lebanon. In 1978, after Operation Litani, when the IDF succeeded, with only, of course, because of Hashem, again, a God's war, very clearly, they succeeded in all their military objectives in Lebanon. Lebanon has always been like the springboard because it's such a weak country. So it's so easy for the terrorists to take over, basically rule the country unofficially. It's very weak. It's very small. It's very easy to take over. So that was the base of the PLO then in 78. And our objective, get them out, push them back. The Litani River is like, we want everything south of the Litani River to be cleared out of the terrorists. And we got everything. Militarily, again, just like with now, with Iran, Israel, it made no sense. And we were discussing that, and we're in the middle of discussing how it makes no sense how we've succeeded. It's beyond anything the world could ever simulate because it just doesn't work that way normally. So in 78, we accomplished all the military goals. And then we're told, we can't have Israeli presence in Lebanon. This makes the native population so upset. We're not talking about the terrorists, right? Innocent native population. But of course, if you leave, the terrorists are going to come back. Don't worry, we'll take over. And there was this group of nations that supposedly are good terms with us. Canada, Sweden, France, countries that were going to come, professional soldiers, keep the peace. You Israeli soldiers go home. We're going to watch over Lebanon for you. It sounded so nice. And the Rebbe said, you're building like false stories, false comfort. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. And it took like 3 weeks, maybe. A few weeks later, the Rebbe was proven completely correct because what happened? Well, the IDF leaves. The foreign soldiers come in under the UN and swords of peace. And, it's wonderful. There won't be any terrorists and we're going to Well, what happens? The terrorists suddenly emerge. Well, what happened to the foreign soldiers that are supposed to keep the terrorists away? They didn't want to endanger their own lives. That's what they signed up for. So where the terrorists emerged was where the French soldiers were, and the French soldiers retreated. And France said, well, we can't put our soldiers in danger from terrorists. So we're going to retreat. This is what they said, as crazy as it sounds, until the terrorists agree that we can be deployed again. And as soon as the terrorists give permission, then we'll come out and stand there to block the terrorists from coming out, meaning never. And from this came the formation of Hezbollah, meaning until 78, it was a PLO. So we uproot the PLO, and with the help of these foreign soldiers doing nothing, the Hezbollah emerges. If we didn't believe it before, we've seen it since October 7th. It's come out so clearly that all of those UN peacekeeping troops of soldiers were doing one of two things, either just doing nothing or actually actively helping the enemy. We saw it time and time again. Soldiers that did nothing and Hezbollah is all over the place and they see nothing and hear nothing and do nothing. Or soldiers of the UN that were helping Hezbollah and doing whatever they could to help these terrorists gain footholds, gain power, set up their munitions. So this is literally still continuing to this day. This swords of peace concept, the UN concept, is not a blessing. It doesn't protect us. Foreign troops aren't going to protect us. Sincere foreign troops are the opposite. Neither of them are going to protect us. The only security is when we control our own destiny and not rely on others. And of course, this is very difficult because, as I'm saying, Netanyahu now is going to have a lot of pressure on him to agree to all these things. And of course, also from the perspective of people in Eretz Yisrael. It's been almost 2 years. So many soldiers have sacrificed their lives. I mean, I'm sure we all know what happened basically yesterday. And there's reservists whose lives are upside down. I have relatives that they go for their miluim, and then they come back again, and they go back again, and then they go back again. Hostages for insane amount of time. And there are people also in Israel just say, we just want this over. But if we give up control, it doesn't lead to peace. It leads to repeat. And we need to have the strength to withstand the pressures, to do the unpopular in the world's eyes. And it's okay, because those that love us, and the rest will never love us anyway. And this is the only path for our safety, for our security. It's only through strength. And you only have this strength when you are rooted in Torah. And when we lose our foundation in Torah, that's when people crumble. So why are we discussing this? Why are we talking about this? Why are we reviewing this? Because I believe in spiritual energy. And as we think about these concepts and articulate these concepts and inside ourselves commit to the truth of these concepts, we are giving an empowerment. We are helping. Of course, we say Tehillim to help. It helps. We give tzedakah to help. It helps. We have confidence and trust to help. It helps. And our articulation and belief in Torah's vision gives it more and more strength. So we should hear wonderful things from Washington. We shall never know what is really going on behind closed doors, but the results should be exactly what we want, because there's a God who's in charge, because he gave us 12 days of miracles, so don't stop now. And because Emir Hashem, what we're doing is helping, and we should see great, great, great positive for the Jewish people outcomes of everything going on now. Thank you.